be heard on the screen. It's good. Wow, that looks nice. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our 14th meetup. Thanks for making all the way, depending on where you're in the city, all the way coming here to the office over here. My name is Amrut. I'm a senior researcher at the Institute for Human Settlements in Sadashinagar. I am part of the Let's Talk Spatial's organizing team, where with Aman at the back, and also Priyaku, who's also joined us. So Let's Talk Spatial is basically a community of sort of like-minded folks who like to get into mapping, photography, GIS, tech, generally in that sphere. We meet up as often as possible to sort of discuss and see what's happening. Things that we do will ideally be linked to open access, open source stuff, mostly because we like people to access them wherever they are for free, do things, teach things, share their experiences. So we do this on as often as possible every month, and we try to reach out to people who might be in the same domain or interested to come, join, showcase, share, talk as much as possible with our audience. We've been growing over the last year or so. We've grown pretty large, and Let's Talk Spatial recently was also part of the technology, let's say, the group for the India Geoscience and Remote Sensing Conference that happened last year. This year also we are supported by the IEEE GRSS Spatial section committee. Me and Aman are part of the IEEE GRSS Spatial section. I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the day. But yeah, so welcome everybody, and so first I think I'll sort of hand it over to Aman Bhargava who's here, who will be taking over for the first talk. Again, if you have any questions, ideally we would like to keep it toward the end of the talk, try and keep the time in mind. But if you think it's pertaining for the current slide or something, you can ask the presenter. But yeah, I'll give it to Aman. Thanks.
Yeah, where is source? अपना top settings. Connect नहीं हो रहा है. I can switch the port to a different issue. Yeah, it is on for some.
Hi, am I audible? Like, is this fine? Awesome. So also just a heads up, like I also have these slides on the link. So if you can't see at some point and you want to see it on your own phone or something, I have it at bit.ly/aman-lds. So if you want to have it on your own phone, that's also fine. Okay, yeah, I'm the second Aman for the day, so I'm basically a database and information designer, and I work at this place called the Visual Labs. We're one of the few like dedicated information design labs in India right now. So I've been working with them for the past year now, and before that I was with the Reuters graphics team, which is also the graphics and the database section of the Reuters enterprise. So yeah, like I'm essentially not a professional spatial scientist, if that's what I would call it, but so if at any point you feel like you know a little more than what's going on now, you feel like what you're talking about, these are perfectly valid reactions that you can give me. But so yeah, the idea of this talk is to basically showcase some of the work that I've been doing, how I got there, because I started off, so I'm a designer, and I'll show you some of my work. So I'm a designer, so how I got there, learning some of the learnings along the way, and some of the mistakes I've made, and how I progressed to what I'm doing right now. So, like I said, I started off as a photographer. So I used to do infrared photography. So that was probably my first exposure to what would later be bands. So I did infrared photography for a couple of years. I also do 3D modeling, so I'm an artist. But for the better part of the last 3 years, I've been working on news graphics, which and this is some of my work from Reuters and my work in general. So a lot of this involves working with reporters, on the stories that they're working on, taking the data, making it accessible to the audiences that we're reporting to. So news graphics is an interesting field because it's very cross-disciplinary. On my daily job, at any point, I'm involved in all parts of the process. Since I'm a designer, I'm in charge of the visual language, but I'm also developing interactives that the audience will interact with. On some days, I'm also doing analysis in R and Python, and so it's a lot of fun because I get to participate in everything, and mapping somehow just lies at the right intersection of all my interests. So it was almost natural that I got drawn to it, and I'll so a little bit about that. So when I joined Reuters, Reuters is known for their maps because on our team we had people who were working with National Geographic, who were working with who had worked previously with Bloomberg, National Geographic. So they are known for a strong culture of mapping. So when I joined as an intern, I was I told my editor, this is one of the things that I really want to learn because I have something that I have no idea about, right? So he encouraged me. He was yes, for sure we'll put you on stories that require maps. So I'll show you a little bit about my first story and how that went. It was something of a disaster, but it gave me a lot of opportunities to learn. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So the assignment was simple. This was in 2022 when there was a heat wave going around in Europe, and I had a very simple task. I was working with a senior reporter, and they told me, here's the data. So what we wanted to do is we have this data from NASA. It's the heat anomaly data for the entire globe for that month. We just wanted to crop it, we just style it a little bit, and just send it our way, right? So it's very simple. But I was no, I can do it, right? I was feeling a little clever, and I was I played around with QGIS a little bit before, I'm pretty sure I can do a little more. So I was let me take this, I'll do something fancy with it, I'll crop it, I'll vectorize it, whatnot. So I went ahead and I played around with contour polygons, etc., etc. I had no idea what I was doing. I had zero idea what rasters, shapefiles, etc. was. So I made this, and I don't know if you can clearly see it, but it was basically the same data. It was vectorized, and I styled it a little. And I was this is a good draft. Let me show it to my editor. And I was feeling pretty proud of it. I was this is pretty solid, and I like it. So we're in the stand-up, and he's looking at it. He's okay. So are you sure about this? And I'm yes, of course I am. I'm pretty sure. This is the data. I've not done much, and I describe the process. He's okay. So from what I see, London and England is largely blue, right? And Central Europe is kind of red. So I was yeah, that's what the data says. So he's yeah. So I'm looking at your data, and I'm looking at stories like this, and there's lamps in London were melting with the heat, right? And in my map, I was describing it's cooler than usual. So So like I had completely like sort of misread what the data was about, and because of like sort of just jumping like straight into it, I was like, this is something I could do, but I missed out on a lot of details, and thankfully that's what we have editors. Imagine if this went out, it would be like the perfect intern moment for writers, and it would be an absolute disaster. But it was, and like, so finally at the end of the story we put out some great maps. So this was my first map that I made, and I finally like toned myself down. I was like, let me just handle rasters, let me just color it properly, and just put it on the same. We also made maps on, so it was about heat. So this was an interesting learning experience. So the story was about heat and droughts in Europe. And one of the data sources that we found in Copernicus, which is also like Europe's like own like data portal, was on photosynthetic activity in plants across Europe. So this was sort of like a proxy for where is the plant stress high and low because of the heat, right? So this is what the reporter made. This is what I had made, and it was so fun for me to see like how he had translated that concept of like plant stress into like a map which informed and added to the story a little more. So yeah, it was a fun experience, but it was an opportunity for me to like go back to the like learning QGIS a little more. So for the next like a week or two, I was just like studying it a little more closely, understood our bands, values, etc. And unfortunately, so the thing about news is it brings out a very morbid side of you, because like something bad happens, but you get work, so you get to do something. It's like a very like it's a very grey area. So unfortunately, what happened in Pakistan was flooding, right? But I mean, so I was browsing Sentinel every day, and I was like, that kind of looks nice, man. Like like unfortunately, like the pictures were like visually like very stunning. So I used to do this thing every morning was if like Reuters was reporting on a new climate story, I would just go over to Sentinel, and Sentinel is free. So I would just like go into the area, just look at the maps, and you see if there's something interesting. So I found these images, and they were the infrared layers from Sentinel. And this was before and after of the situation in Pakistan. So the same area, just like a week or two apart, how it looked like right now. And you can see like from the pictures, it was completely like inundated, right? So I showed it to my editor, who was like, these actually look, they look very nice, right? Like so, and this is like, it could be a story on its own for, like, let's hold it for now, let's just take some smaller graphics. So I did that, and by this time I had like sort of developed my own like jugaad process of processing some of these things, because I was still like getting there. So what I did was, I took the same images, I took the layers which sort of highlighted the water, and in Photoshop I extracted like the threshold values that I needed, and this was a small graphic that we put out, and two reporters in Pakistan used it for their story. And the editor was again like, okay, this actually, this could be a larger story on its own. So why don't we try covering like the entire, like the country of Pakistan, and show like how much it has flooded. So I've like attached a series of maps, and this was fun because these files pack so much information that if you are presenting it to an audience which does not know anything, has no background context, it can get like really hard for them to comprehend what's going on, right? So this was a great exercise, and I've just outlined like sort of the simple process, like which obviously I think most of you would like know about. But it was a simple process. The idea was to reduce all of that information into like a small like compressed form into the cleaner graphic over there. And so initially I was like, let me do this in Photoshop again, and my editor was like, no, because so he was like, what if we need to do this a week from now, to compare the flooding extents, right? So this needs to be like exactly reproducible, so that anyone else after you leave or someone else leaves, you can use the exact same process to do that. So I was like, okay, fine. And that's when I started like using like, so since it was the process was pretty simple, I just started using like the graphic model in QGIS, and it was fine experience because I could just feed in the images and get the map that I wanted right out. And we did end up following up that story. So this was the first graphic that we put out, and this was like a week or two later. We compared flooding extents from I think like the colors might be a little blurry here, but the basic idea was like comparing between a week how worse the flooding had gotten. And I can actually show you the story as well. This is on Reuters, the website. So, and this was because the satellite imagery was so striking, we decided that we will use maps, but let us stick to like what the ground reality is. So, this was a story I was working with some developers to develop the thing. But so the basic idea was to show how worse the flooding had gotten in like key cities in Pakistan. So, and I can show you like the final map as well. So, yeah, you can see like airports were completely inundated, and we had this like beautiful full-page graphic that was used in other places as well. So this was the first time I sort of led a story which was completely like just because I was like messing around with Sentinel online, and this was also around the time that when Queen Elizabeth died, so the newsroom attention sort of went there, and I was left to sort of just work on the story. It was a fun experience, and I'm kind of grateful for it. But yeah, so that was my time at Reuters, and like a lot of like some learning was there was like I said, we have a lot of information that it takes time to understand. You have to often refer to documentation to understand what these colors mean, what these layers mean. So a big part of learning over there was how can I reduce as much as possible, but just enough so that the audience understands what they need to. So a good example of that was Hurricane Ian broke out again in the same year, and this is a breaking news graphic, so it has to be put out within like maximum 2 hours of the news breaking, right? Because we want to put it out before other outlets. So again, like very simple graphic, but just enough for the audience to know what's what. Like, for example, if I'm living in Florida, I just want to know which city is going to be in the storm's path, what's the population like there, so that's pretty much it. I could have so much more there. There's almost like a tendency because of so much data available. Like I have natural earth layers, I have OSM layers, I can just sort of place them and they just go there, right? So the main edits that I got during my process was, hey, cut down on the amount of things that you're putting out, because it's not really helping, it's kind of distracting. So that's been sort of like my practice now, that just enough and not anymore. I think my background as a designer and a photographer also like comes in because I have a sort of good understanding of color and composition. So with some maps you don't even need all this attention data. This was a map for Greenpeace on sewage spills in the UK. So again, since the data is a lot of the weight is just carried by like the colors and the annotations, right? So so just to show that it doesn't have to be just like extremely minimal. If it is maximal, you add that. You play with annotation and color to like sort of complement that. And recently, I've been trying to also add more like moving pieces to maps. So I work on interactives and work with websites, right? So we have, for a story that I'm working on currently, we have to show like land use in the Argavati basin. And land use maps are very cluttered just because, it's a wide area. You have like small patches of land which are like agriculture, urban like settlements and so on. So I was wondering how I can like distill this information for the user, like for the reader even more. And we played around with like an area chart to show like the extent of each land use type from the top to the bottom. And I was playing around with layouts, and if you put it like right next to the map in the same vertical orientation, it just therefore like corresponds to like the latitudes almost exactly. So it's a fun way to like, and this is an interactive piece. So as you move through the story, the land use changes. You can see the graph actually changing. So the map is complementary to the entire like graphic in general. So it's not just the map, but other components that go along with it. But yeah, so that was fun. Reuters was fun. It taught me a lot of. So a lot of it was climate sort of reporting and large scale areas. But what I realized after that was, since all of this data is available, I was more interested in what's happening in like my city or like a smaller area more than I was over like just like India in general, Pakistan in general, right? That's a little more local to me, it's of more interest. So this was when I was in my 4th year of college, so I had my thesis. And so I was looking for topics, and I had come across the work of Walk. I don't know if you guys know Walk. So Proto has been doing like some great work in documenting like walkability issues in Bangalore, among other things. So I was in contact with him, I was following his page. So he really got me into the idea of like walkability and what walkability means, how I can like understand it. And it seemed like the perfect sort of way for me to like explore these new skills, and because it was both a qualitative and a quantitative problem. So just to like start off with, I was doing these like exploratory maps for Bangalore, and this is from just like a tutorial I found online. So this map basically shows the intersection density. This is like OSM maps, like OSM data, which is just processed a little bit. So this shows intersection density in Bangalore, in the area of Bangalore. So the darker areas have more roads which connect as compared to like the outer areas. And this was fun. So basically the idea is that if you have more intersections, it's easier for me to get around in the same like block of area than, for example, imagine navigating on a highway versus compared to something like the center of city, right? Since you have more roads, since you have more spaces for you to walk on, it's easier. So it's sort of a metric for you to like judge the walkability of it. It's not the only one. But this was fun because I could look at the area. So I was living in Yelahanka at the time, and I was like, this is interesting because I could look at the map and I could like correlate it with the ground reality that I was actually living in, right? So it was fun. Like this data was available for me to use. It's all available for almost every city in the world, thankfully. So I could do that. And but what if like I wanted to go even smaller, like Bangalore? To judge like the walkability of Bangalore is a huge task, and I cannot undertake that in like 4 months. So the idea was to find like a smaller playground, a smaller lab where I could look at all these various things and look at it in a qualitative and a quantitative way. And so walkability is sort of often measured as like, you have sidewalks, you have enough roads, you have traffic lights, but that does not always sort of play out, right? For example, I'll tell you where I worked. So I chose the ward of Ejipura, which is right next, like almost next door, right? So Ejipura is like, if you've ever been inside the area which is not National Games Village, those streets and those roads, I mean, if you put a sidewalk there, I mean, it does not play, that map does not work out there because the streets are so narrow, they have their own set of problems which walkability audits can sort of dismiss, they can get a low score, but so maybe the streets over there are walkable for people and they have other problems other than sidewalks, right? So the idea was to mix these kind of like qualitative findings from the people in Ejipura and then see if I could like map it out and quantify that a little more. So yeah, the basic idea was what does walkability mean to the people there, and can I map it? And can I make this process replicable for anyone to use in the city of their choice? So my thesis ended up being like a guidebook of methods that you can use in any sort of city based on my findings in Ejipura. So it's sort of generalizable. But it's too long to like sort of go through, but I can show you like some key points, like or some not some key points, but like a few instances of the kind of explorations that I did. So for example, these are the red lines are the tracks that we went on for our walkability audits where we were interviewing people, we were looking at the conditions of the streets and so on. So choosing like the ward is around, it's pretty small, but you can't audit every street, right? So this is where something like, when again like sort of the spatial skills came in. So this was an analysis I'll show you. It's a set of techniques called spatial syntax analysis, which just takes like the configuration of the roads and tries to like paint a picture of how that configuration affects the people who are living there, how they interact with that space. So the idea was with just the road network, I could draw some conclusions about the streets, which are, for example, if I'm doing a walkability audit and I want to find out the key streets, that network could just highlight the roads that are actually just needed to focus on, which were key roads. So this analysis is based on how many connections are leading up to the main roads, how long is the road. So all of these things are abstract behind software, but surprisingly it works well. So it highlighted these roads, and this was before I started doing walkability audits, and we just for the sake we went in and we checked, and so those roads were actually the ones that had like the most commercial activity, had most like thoroughfare. So it was pretty interesting that these sort of learnings were starting to inform like my research on ground as well. So the idea was to like look at it cross-sectionally, like through a lot of things. Like we also looked at public transport. Thankfully some of this data is available for Bangalore. So we were looking at who's being excluded in the ward area from parks, right? So if I'm a child who wants to go to a park, where do I have access to? So this is where most of the population lives, and we could do like isochrones and look at the routing to see like, okay, the two parks in the ward are in places where most of the children who are living here cannot access them. So again, it was an interesting exercise where you could look at, for example, this map was about bus stops, where are they located, are the buses going where people need them to go, right? So we were doing interviews, do you use the bus stop, why do you not use the bus stop? And often it was just that, sometimes like the streets are like too crowded, we still take autos because it's too hot to walk. So all of these things like sort of came out, and it was fun to give them a graphical representation which sort of correlated with the realities on ground. So like I said, one of the things that walkability like artists seem to miss out on was like the comfort in walking. So even if like a road's nice, right? Am I feeling comfortable? So one of the few complaints that we all heard from all interviews was that it's too hot to walk and the roads get flooded during rainy season, right? So sidewalks are not a problem, but this was. So how can I quantify that? And thankfully, by this time I had like known where to look, where I could like proxy that insight with some other data. So these two are layers that, like, for example, if someone said there are no green spaces for our kids to play in, or you must see get too hot because there are no trees, you can look at the concentration of trees, and I'll show you how I improved upon this. And by like again, less is more. So this was too dense for me to like show to an audience, right? But the idea was that I can see where some of the greenery is. I can also get a very granular look at through this. So this is a map of the surface temperature at almost like 100 meters, 10 meters intervals or something. So you can see like, so this is focused on majestics. So majestics like dark red because the concrete. Wherever there are trees, you'll see that the temperature is a lot lower. So obviously like ground temperature, so this is measuring the temperature on the ground, but so which is obviously a little hotter than air temperature, but it's a good enough like data for me to use to draw some conclusions or just paint a picture. So again, I took this data, and by this time I had learned like a little more rational analysis. So I could now turn this data into more like simple maps, which could now be like related to the interviews that we had. So for example, if I'm looking at, if people are telling me that our streets get flooded, right? A simple way to sort of see which areas are at risk is use like an elevation layer, which is available freely, and these threshold values to see which ones are extremely low lying. So this is SC bed, which if you see like news articles, is often flooded during monsoons. National Games Village, who had the most greenery, it was a high sort of playing area, and the heat was also low. So it was interesting that these maps were showing like the same sort of differences that I was seeing on ground. And this was, I really loved doing this because it was not that I was imposing my set of like, okay, this is what walkability means. This is what walkability means to you and like to the people there, and I can sort of, I have some data to show, how that's coming out of the ground. So yeah, my thesis was basically on that. I did a larger study, and these are some snippets of it, but it was a study in Ejipura, and the final like output was a guidebook which had more maps in it, and it detailed out all the methods that I had used to study Ejipura and the same like processes that had gone with QGIS, and all of this data was freely available. That means you could use it for almost like any place that you wanted in India or anywhere else, and it listed out all the methodologies that I had used to arrive at these conclusions. But yeah, so I mean that was last year. So since then I've been coding a little more. So now I do a little more fun stuff for my own sake. So for example, like I've been like I'll show you what I have going on my website if it opens. So I become interested in not having this like static maps, but maps that are like alive to some extent, and I can interact with. So I track all my data like wherever I go, and this map updates sort of every day with where I've been. And this is kind of probably safest. Like if a software is like dedicated enough, I could really get engaged, but hopefully that will happen. But yeah, so I have this thing running. It's all open source. I have a server that my friend Vivek sort of convinced me more or less to like get. He's an OSM member. But yeah, so I run this thing. It runs on its own every week. It just takes my tracks, it matches them to like the roads, and then it updates the Lambo Maker. So it's a fun thing. It's just something that I felt like doing, and it's fun for me to like see a map like come to life. It's also self-sustaining more or less. So yeah, it's fun. This for example, I also do like more interactive maps now. The Greenpeace map of like sewage spills that we saw. They asked me to make interactive version of it so that people could like look at their pin codes and look at how like okay, where am I living and what's the situation like there. So this is sort of so I can like look up pin code and look at the situation on ground over there. So this is I've been told that this is like Greenpeace is like most like heavy traffic page like this last year. So that was great, and it's sort of fun to see all of this like go from static to interactive. And yeah, so I mean, I also just play around with things now. I love making just maps of Bangalore in general. So I have like, so I also sell prints. So some of these styles which I just keep working on, it's just fun for me to like explore like various layers and see what I can show, see what I, how I can show these things. So yeah, I mean, this is some of like what I do on the daily, and it's fun for me. Like I really enjoy it, and that was some of my work. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a very small talk, so I can't really go more into like the process and stuff. So this was just meant to be a showcase. But if you're interested and if you're someone who like wants to look at these things, so I've compiled all the resources that we use in the newsroom. Like if you're interested in some of these, so this is like data like on precipitation, on heat, on stuff that sometimes is not advertised. But if you're interested, it's all open. And I also have all the resources that I've used for my walkability study is also over there. So these are all the slides as well, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I also have on my website, it's a course on how to use QGIS as a beginner that I took in college. So it's a you can get through it in about like 3-4 hours or something, and it's completely from ground up to like using the same data for walkability and all those other things, same analysis that you can do. Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's me. I also have some of the map prints that you saw earlier for you to pick up. Like they're over here. They have 2 slides that you can choose from. So please, whenever like this event is done, I'll leave them out for you. You can take one home. That's just like a thank you for like coming to this. And yeah, that's me. Thank you for listening. That's all.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
In your one of the slide you have mentioned that probability, and in that one you have mentioned something like qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative and
yeah.
What does that related to the probability?
So yeah, so like I said, so quantitative and qualitative, right? Like I said, one of the things that I found missing in walkability audits that happen in the city is that we go visit a neighborhood and we look at certain aspects of the street, like okay, is the street wide enough? Do we have other sidewalks? Are they like shaded? Is the trash there fine? So we look at like a certain amount of metrics, but what I realized what I wanted to like not miss out on was what do the people of like Ijipura feel about their own streets, right? So I don't impose my set of like rules on what a walkable street looks like to them who have been like using it for a while. So the idea was that I go to them and I do interviews first and ask like, okay, what are the problems that you face? Where do you have to go throughout the year, not just at the point that I'm visiting, right? So I visited in like around March, but I asked questions about how is it in the monsoons, right? So if I'm visiting at a point in time and in a few months from now this entire street is just gone because the water is clogged. So that's not telling me the full picture. So the idea was that these set of metrics come from like the people of Vijaypura, and then some of those, if I can quantify them, I wanted to quantify them so that you have like my research is both like what they said and what I could also show if somebody wanted to know more about the area.
What they said and what you have, that is quantitative.
Yeah, so what they are telling me is like qualitative, like their own problems, their own like qualitative. So interviews are like qualitative data,
Okay.
but I could like analyze the data, so it became quantitative, right? Like
Yes, yes.
so, yeah. Any other questions?
Really interesting piece of work, like having some amount of knowledge and experience around it can definitely relate, because we were cracking our heads up, while designing, like we started designing like epidemic prediction systems even before like pandemics and all hit. So we were trying to do it since 2011. From our college days, we were trying to design something around it. So can definitely understand, like when the data representation or visualization part comes in, where you have to show like via heat maps or some visualization techniques, where the like flow of diseases is and how is it transitioning from let's say one city to another city. Let's say from Koromangala right now to Whitefield. How is the disease going and like what's the mode? It can be air, it can be human touch, it can be like this. So we had a lot of issues, like when with such broad topics and the list of diseases that we were covering. So yeah, would love to understand that, by like with your experience with this date and time currently, if you were to like do it, like what would you use and how would you do it? Because we both know, like maps and visualization techniques are the ones that we need. Even the health officials prefer that, to see the dashboard analytics in such way. Let's say, for example, Bangalore from Koromangala to JP Nagar to Indira Nagar to Whitefield to Marathali. Like how is the flow of ECs going on? What are the number of people affected? What's the population affected? Pollution levels, AQI, etc. So if you had to do it, can you give some tips and suggestions? Can you showcase if possible? All up to you. I would love to know.
So yeah, I think Reuters has story that they did previously on how a pandemic spreads. Right. So they modeled the spread of pandemics across the globe. So it starts from here, depending on how the flights are, how connecting and so on. So they did the entire modeling. It's somewhere on the website. It will take me a little bit of time to find. But it was fun. It was fun to see it on a global scale. I don't really know how I would do it on a local scale, like you were suggesting. But it seems like an interesting problem. But yeah, like I said, the problem is knowing what not to add. Because with dashboards, the tendency is that let me just put all the data that I possibly can, right? But as a reader, I have no clue. I'm coming from a place of almost zero understanding, and I'm depending on you to tell me what's what. So I think for stuff like this, I think storytelling formats like my Pakistan story is an example, right? Where you're taking the reader through various steps. So thinking of them as a reader, not consumer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean that's it's a very broad question. So this is a broad answer.
No worries. Yeah. But definitely would love to collab and work on that problem. It's still existing. Yeah. It's still work in progress. We are currently working with Art Park, IIS Bangalore. So they are now specifically working on these niche of prediction for dengue, malaria and such diseases. So we are helping them, but this is still trend topic or a hot topic for us to break our heads into, be it designers, be it developers. So if we have your brains and your input, we would surely would love someday. Yeah.
Awesome. You can reach out to me.
Sure, for sure. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Great work. Hello. Yeah. Great work, and I really like the visualization and everything. The question is also, it's a small question on the visualization piece. I've worked a little bit with story maps, the RGI story maps, and I saw a couple of videos which were similar. I think the Reuters one, which was where the maps are embedded and such. Are there any open source platforms where we can easily templatize and make those?
So good question. So this is so you're asking about the process, right? How it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So what my process and the user process in general is that we do all our visualizations in QGIS. For example, if it's a static map, right? It's just a map. For example, the Pakistan map is a static map, right? It will not need it to be interactive. It will not need it to be. So we do it in QGIS and we we export it as a PDF. So it's all vector and we style it in Illustrator. So according to whatever style visual language we have, and there are processes made for you to illustrate, to export it directly from Illustrator to HTML. So it's just what I get is a perfectly embeddable piece of a file which I can just embed in directly into my web page. So there are processes I can show you
The question is for the dynamic maps.
The dynamic maps I use Leaflet and MapLibre and stuff. So that's what I don't want to depend on platforms like ArcGIS because it's a closed platform.
Exactly.
If they choose to play with the pricing or something, so Felt was a great example. So Felt, have you heard of Felt? So Felt was it was a super easy platform. They made it so easy for us to work from directly QGIS into a platform. But in 2024 they capped it at 2 files or something, right? So again, all of that knowledge was not closed. So the best way to do is so for my own map, this map that I have on my website, this is also a map tile. So map tiles is what you use for stuff, right? So it's also self-hosted. I can now self-host it. I can use something called PM tiles. Yeah. So it's a static map. I can just update the file there and I show it. So MapLibre, D3, Reflect, and PM tiles. All of these things work well if you. And this learning curve is obviously there, but it's kind of it's minimal after a point. There's enough to show. Yeah.
You have a question?
This one, I wanted to know whether this the data which you are getting is. I have seen you had also regarding this ISRO is giving the data for this one.
Sorry?
This ISRO, no?
Yeah.
So this, are you getting the data from the temperature sensors and all only?
So ISRO data, unfortunately, it takes a lot of arm twisting to get to that data. Like, for example, I remember when Pakistan was flooding, Bangalore was also flooding, right? This was in 2022. A lot of localities were underwater, practically. So we asked, like, ISRO and like IMD for, not ISRO, IMD for precipitation data, like, which went back to see, how far this was an anomaly. And we were asked to pay like 25K or something like that. So it's whatever data is already there is also like, it's in formats that take a lot of time for us to like get to, you to process it a lot. So unfortunately, like I rely on Sentinel, which is a European thing, to get the data that I want, right? It's global, it's open, they've made it usable. So like I think our like data formats also have a long way to go in getting there. Some of it is open, but like the resolution is usually like maybe inferior, the usability is like less, right? So unfortunately, I think all of us just depend on like Sentinel, Copernicus, all these like European, maybe NASA and all that stuff. So yeah, it's mostly I don't remember having used in the time I was there like ISRO data.
And one more question is like I am asking the question in a common perspective. So I wanted to see my house.
Right.
Just now you told that regarding the dynamic and static.
Yeah.
So right now, what is the status of that? I have built one more with this one floor in there. I have to see that latest.
So I mean, you can see it to some extent on Sentinel, but like again, like that imagery is not as high res for like house level. So I think Ijipura, the extent of Ijipura is where after that if you zoom in, the resolution starts to be. So yeah.
No way.
No way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
How do you visualizing the data?
Thanks.
Raw data, that is also very interesting. And you mentioned something like LIDAR also.
Yeah.
Light detection and
Yeah.
So they use it for this railway road markings and
Yeah.
using that helpful. Report some link to that.
Thanks.
Just to add to this, recently ISRO has opened the data, the AF data. It's close to resolution of Sentinel, but not as good as but the processing is not very easy, but still you can go to your browser and click on it, you can download. I think 1 year back it was not processed, 1 month.
Yeah. Recently, I think like a few months back.
Yeah.
I heard that ISRO is supporting too many startups for giving the data. That is why I asked.
Alright, thank you. So if you have any more questions, we have an open session after the next presentation. We have enough time to discuss in person. But yeah, before we go to the next one, I think we have some familiar faces, some of our previous speakers. I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming, but there are a lot of new faces as well. So I think we just like to go around the room once. If you're okay with sharing your name, your real name, your usernames or whatever, Twitter or whatever you're using, it's also fine. But basically, what do you do? Is it related to what's happening here? Just share whatever you can. Just start.
Hi, I am Yashkar. I'm a freelancer, Web3 developer, Web2 developer. I right now contributing in Farcaster. It's a kind of a decentralized client, kind of a Twitter kind of thing, but in Web3. So yeah, this is about me. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Preet, and I just moved to Bangalore 15 days ago. I come from satellite operations field, and I'm trying to start a company in the satellite tasking and scheduling aspect. And so GIS is something that I'm passionate about in terms of I like running, and so I try to paint a map of a city while exploring different routes like you have on the website. So I enjoy that aspect a lot. Great presentation, by the way.
Hi, I'm Kagu. I work in Circuit Analytics. I take care of the merchants in like data processing and organization. We are a tech startup, so we work mostly on tech related stuff.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Suraj. I work in Bangalore in a pharmaceutical company from the engineering design, construction and commissioning. And my interests are into the startup, so I come every week. I try to find out any events are going on. So I come to events events like this, network with people, get some ideas about the latest technology like IT, automation, whatever, ChatGPT, and this type of latest technology, AIS technologies. So that is my basic introduction. Presentation was very fantastic. You have given it in a simple words. Thanks. Thank you.
Hello everyone, myself Pratham here. Currently working as a software developer at Walmart. Just exploring different fields and expanding my knowledge outside this. So yeah, and moving forward, networking and all. That's all from my side.
Yeah, I'm Vivek. I work as a DevOps engineer in a fintech company, but I'm interested in GIS because I got into OpenStreetMap a while ago and just got fascinated with everything about GIS, and I've been coming for LTS events for more than a year.
I'm also Vivek. I'm at Well Labs. It's a research and innovation lab working on water. We work on in both rural water and urban water domain. In terms of GIS, I'm a groundwater hydrologist, so basic knowledge of GIS, but I love maps, following up rivers on Google Maps and stuff. Related to GIS or remote sensing, our work is mostly on developing open source layers from satellite data regarding water and land use, we're currently working on developing open source water security indicators like water availability, water access, water resilience, and those stuff. So, we're trying to expand our GIS team to kind of get that done. So yeah, great to be here and to get a presentation. Thank you.
Hello, myself Prithvi, and I work at ABTV as a product designer and 3D artist. Yeah, that's all about my job. Just networking around.
A very good afternoon, good morning to everyone. So yeah, I'm there, and thank you for tolerating this back-end ugliness of me, because the front end is not well designed, from the design perspective that we are talking about. So I won't take much time, I'll say the interesting part that I feel is the most interesting job that I do, which is from 7 p.m. afterwards. I'm a stand-up comedian from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Yeah, so you've been a lovely audience, and this is exactly the response I like. This is exactly how you enjoy dark jokes. Yeah, that's how I love my women also, dark, dead, and deeply in love. Yeah, so thank you so much, reminds me of Rameshwaram Cafe, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Shreyash. I'm a full stack developer, currently working on backend at Proto. We work on mapping services basically, geocoding, river geocoding and stuff. Yeah, I'm currently based out of Bangalore. Yeah, our team mostly works remotely. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
I'm Akshay. I run a company called Proto. We build map data collection tools, map data products, and all stuff. I talk about afterwards. I think that's it.
Hello, I'm Samita Shrivastava. I work as a data scientist in GIS in Louis Draper's company. It is an agriculture trading company, and I create a product analysis and product which will help traders for predictions and do the trading. And recently got motivated with PyStack and with planetary computer. So I initially working was with Google Earth Engine, but I got motivated with the previous speakers and exploring other platforms as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Samana. I'm a UX researcher and a designer. I'm just excited to learn more about GIS. I've done some research work before, but this is new.
Hi, my name is Donald. I'm from Bangalore. I work as a GIS analyst in University of Agriculture Science, Bangalore. So I'm just exploring. I'm basically a geologist. So I have studied GIS in my college, but not the coding part or the more technical part, more of mapping and more of physical mapping. So I'm more interested in digital mapping and what's going on. So that's why I'm here to network with fellow GIS people so that I can understand how to go about more deeply into coding and automation and GIS.
Hi, I'm Ganesh. I'm working as a GIS analyst in a drone-based company in the field of photogrammetry. But I have interest in regarding this maps and all. But right now I'm working in the photogrammetry.
Hi, Mandal. This is Rohit from ARIO. Working at ARIO as a GIS analyst and in drone data processing. Previously working as satellite data processing, now jump to drone data processing. So drone is more vast, widely used now. So I'm very much interested in drone data processing and heard about this event through my friend Darshan. So this is my first session. I'm keen to learn what the topics, what the various look over in the QGIS fields and various other fields. So I'm attending this session.
Hello everyone, I'm Darshan, who is a GIS analyst in ARIO and I'm very interested in spatial analysis and as well as networking, on which I previously worked for route mapping and on various projects on government sectors, and this is a very good opportunity to learn and also thank Aman for giving better visualization and data interpretation, and thank you.
Hello, myself Raj. I'm an engineering student in third year, and I'm a community ambassador at Proto. Also in our college, we are working on a project called CAMSAT. It's a cam-shaped satellite. It's a competition by ISRO. So I'm a technical subsystem head of CAMSAT. And we have cleared all the rounds, MRR round, and we will be going for the launch in Ahmedabad next month. So that's it.
Hi everyone, I am Aman Bagrecha. I work at a company called Galaxy Space. I work there as a geospatial scientist, mostly dealing with AI and machine learning, detecting points, working in defense sector currently. So I'm one of the founders of Spatial along with Amrut and Diako. We have been running this meetup for about 2 years now, and this is our 14th meetup. And if you guys are interested, next week also we are hosting a hackathon which is on edge computing. So if you have some AI models which you want to deploy on edge, you could do that. It's remote, it's virtual, and if you want to also participate physically, we'll be hosting at SkyServe's office, which is another space startup. So yeah, excited to see you all, and hopefully after this talk we can network and chat. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Bhuvan Avitra. I am working as a geospatial manager at Spatial. I basically work on building solutions for aviation industry, mainly GIS for aviation route planning, then mapping of the aerodromes, and many other products we have. We are building a few for airlines as well. So I work in this domain. Previously, I was working on agriculture related things. Recently, I have been moved to this sector, and this is my third time I'm attending Spatial, and I was also one of the speaker in one earlier talks as well. Right, that's about it. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ishwar. I work as a software engineer at a fintech company called Draper. I recently moved to Bangalore, and this is my first event. I'm here to enter. Thank you.
One new face. On this one. Just came in.
Hi, my name is Krishna. I work at DRDO at INS. So my work is to develop flight simulators for unmanned aircraft. So I thought this event will help me in networking regarding the work I do at INS. That's it.
Thanks everyone. I'm Amrut. Absolutely. I'm Amrut. I'm a senior researcher at the Indian Institute for Human Settlements. My work is mostly on mostly teaching nowadays, but a lot of on photography, sort of spatial analysis, processing on the cloud, scaling up to global, national level processing and stuff. But yeah, I just like to tinker around with maps, tools, try to build stuff, learn, unlearn, forget, curse myself. All of that happens quite often. But yeah, it's a fun domain to be part of. It's an exciting room today. I've never seen this diverse set of people in one roof. This is the first time in all of our events. This is crazy diverse. Maybe we have a comedian as well. That's never happened before. But that's awesome. We'll go with the next presentation if Akshay is ready. We can. Yeah. So we'll just set it up. So yeah, thanks, Aman. That's excellent. So all of this, I think, all the resources that was shared today was talked about. I think the speakers will give it to us, and then we will broadcast it over on the website or on maybe on our GitHub page or wherever the speakers would like them to have it. So all of this will be put out eventually. So you just follow us for that. Cool. So I guess we have Akshay here, also our gracious host for the day. Thank you so much, Akshay, for having us. He'll take us over what Proto is all about. It's completely cutting edge, next gen maps are content, I guess, a theme for today. A lot of it really flew over my head the first time I talked to Akshay because I couldn't sort of grasp what Web3 is, especially in photography, or let's say maps generally as in it. I went through their website and I sort of understood what it's all about, and it's really, really new stuff. It would be great to hear from the man himself. So yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Give me a second while I adjust this. Okay, people who are like far back, can you see what's on the screen? It's clear? It's fine? Make it full screen. Wish.com will ask me for money. Okay, I'm going to try and stand here. This is a little bit awkward because I can't see the screen. Anyway, hi folks, I'm Akshay. Founder at Proto. We've been around for about a year now, and I'll tell you more about us as we go ahead. But quick background about me. I started my career as an architect, which I hated. So 6 months into that job, I quit, and I started a geospatial consulting firm in Mumbai. Ran that because I learned GIS just for fun or whatever, and ran that for 3 years. Got bored and moved to the US. Did a master's in geospatial science and worked with ArcGIS, a bunch of cities as a consultant, worked on a bunch of products that they were developing, story maps like you said, worked on that, and yeah, kind of got sick of working for other people, and last year was, I think, the time when I was like, okay, now it's just, I've been working on this idea for much longer, but last year was the time when I was like, okay, this is the end. So quit, moved back, started building this. Shreyash, who is from our team back there, one of the first team members that we started with, developer. Raj just joined us recently, he's interning with us, he's also like really talented. So yeah, a small team of 6 people, and we've been building this for about a little less than a year. Okay, so I do a lot of these Mapper meetups, and people come, and then they try to be jackasses. They try to be really smart about stuff. This is not that kind of crowd. I go to other crowds. The slide is like a default slide, so just so you know that people are being an idiot, we will kick them out. This is like when they're on Zoom calls trying to throw random things in the chat, pitch their own product while someone else is talking, all that kind of crap. So this is not for you. Ignore it, it's fine. Yeah. So 1 year ago, started building this. Less than 1 year ago. 2 months, we built the first prototype, put it into user testing. 5 months into that, we won a hackathon, which gave us like a little bit of capital so that we could run ahead, hire a few more people and start building properly. And it's been a great year so far since that time. Lots of building, lots of meeting new people, lots of discussions with communities, trying to figure out what's right, what's not. Just this journey of building a product is really interesting because you're constantly talking to people who are using it, and they tell you really tiny things about what you've built, and just changing that tiny thing, you see an uptick in performance the next day on the chart, which makes you feel fantastic. So I'm going to start with these stories. It says 2, but there was a third story here which I just put in this morning, which I want to talk about. So the first one is this map here. This is my grad thesis. This is South Coastal Andhra. If you guys are familiar with the geography, this is Vizag, Visakhapatnam, and this is the Krishna Godavari rivers in the delta that forms there. So I was studying sort of the effects of climate change on populations that were living along the coast and how they were being impacted, especially estuary regions basically. So, and this map was like the core of my thesis. Took like 6 months to build, and like scraping data from like a shit ton of sources, walking around in Guntur for no reason, trying to capture information in Vizag, just all sorts of stuff. And one of the things I learned while building it is that if you tell the story of how a map gets built well, or if you tell the story of what a map is about very well, people are really interested in that. People are not interested in looking at it because not a lot of people are capable of understanding this. You guys are familiar with maps, so you guys are looking at it and you're able to get it, but a lot of people just don't know what it is. But if you tell a story along with this, a lot of people are really into it. And they want to know why these things are happening, what is happening. Because ultimately these are places that we all inhabit and we know about, and any reference that you can make to something that people are aware of, it has an impact. That's story 1. Story 2, Reddit. We all use Reddit. So last year, if you remember, Reddit had a massive shutdown. Right? People were just like, I'm not going to use it. And it was right around the time when Reddit was in this sort of battle with OpenAI, talking about we now want to get paid for the data. OpenAI's first few models were built on, the LLM was built on top of Reddit data. It was the largest sort of collection of how human beings talk to each other in the world. And I think Reddit finally signed a deal 2 months ago, something like that. They signed a deal 2 months ago, right? Shresh is not in his head, he remembers. $60 million. Yeah. So Reddit signed a deal, and Reddit signed the money that Reddit makes out of that goes to Reddit. But all that data that's on Reddit is actually user-generated content. You have contributed it, you've been a mod, someone else has done something. And none of that AI training data is coming back to the people who actually built it. It's just going back to Reddit. And the same thing happened yesterday. This is literally yesterday's news. This is news from today morning. Meera Murati, CTO of ChatGPT, OpenAI, was giving an interview, and someone asked her, you guys have seen like the videos from Sora, right? And someone asked her that how was Sora trained, and she didn't have an answer. Because she just didn't want to say that they used YouTube data. Because if they did, then there are creators of YouTube who you need to compensate. These are people who make the effort of sort of putting up videos, money has gone into making those videos, and those people need to be compensated. But she just flipped on that answer and everyone caught her on it, and it's been blowing up on Twitter since yesterday. So I think the essence here is we live in a world where content generated by people is exponentially more valuable than content generated by AI. And I think as we move forward over the next 5 years, when AI becomes much more prevalent, you're reading blogs that have been written by AI for SEO purposes or whatever the hell, you'll start noticing the difference much more prominently, and you'll become much better at sort of seeking out information that a person wrote. And this information that a person wrote will be much more valuable to you than that what AI created. Okay, Aman just demonstrated it in his presentation, but I think just like being a Reddit mod is hard work, or building a YouTube video is hard work, doing mapping is also hard work. How long will it take you to do the walkability analysis? The entire thing? 2 months is a lot of work to build the work, to do the stuff that you're doing. It took me 6 months to make that other video. And we don't talk about it very well. We don't, this community is not very good at telling the story about how hard it is to make this stuff. Right? You're going out, you're in the sun, you're capturing data, you're scraping stuff in front of your computer, eating ramen or whatever, I don't know. And we don't compensate for it properly. And I think it's because there is inherently the model that has been built for geospatial data has been wrong. It's been built as this. It's been built in a way where the people who contribute do not get recognition and do not get compensation. And ultimately what happens because of that is the biggest beneficiary is the person who has the biggest ability to pull data out and process it and do stuff with it. So I think these are like hard truths that I kind of realized when I was doing this early on, that any open source stuff that I do, the biggest beneficiary of that is Google. No one else is the biggest beneficiary of it than Google. If I don't stand up for my work, no one else will. And if I let myself be exploited with the work that I'm doing, then I'm basically letting Yash also be exploited at the same time because Yash has done some work as well. And creating narratives around these things is important. You need to tell a story because people understand stories, people don't understand technicalities. Although I will get into technicalities at the end, but that's a different thing. Okay, so this is our thesis. We worked on this last year, we were really like trying to narrow it down to 3 things that we really wanted to do. We think maps are like content, and I think the way Reddit is, or the way YouTube is, or the way any of these content platforms are, maps need to be treated like that. We think easier ways to map means more people will map, and lowering the barrier of entry to this is much more important than ever before. And more mapping revenue streams is better for all of us. This is a positive sum game. It's not a zero sum game. So the more people who are involved in this, the better it is for all of us. So this is how YouTube works. There's a creator, they put stuff up, there are viewers, and there is some sort of a marketing, advertising thing that happens here, and YouTube sort of sends some back to the creator. The thing is that maps have a wider distribution opportunity. They are distributed for people look at it, businesses use it, there are private users that might have some other purposes for it, public organizations need it. This list is endless. And if you're able to build a similar model around what YouTube has done with it, we might be able to create like a really nice positive reinforcement loop of people contributing data, building new maps, and earning from it because the people who are using it are adequately compensating from them for their usage. So this is like quick math that we did last year. 2022, active monetized YouTube creators average $12,000 a year, is 1,000 per creator. 1,000 per creator, I think per month is like a decent amount of money if you're doing this part time. 2022, these are people we spoke to. Okay, I'm not taking numbers based on like what is available online. These are people we spoke to. 150 people, contributions worth 288,000 in terms of hours, which is not the best way to calculate it, but there is no other way to do it because right now this is the only method we have. Which is 160 per month, not that bad if you're doing this part time on the weekend, chilling around. And it's valued on a median hourly wage basis, which is not the best because the median hourly wage in India is quite low, doesn't really reflect the amount of expertise that is required to produce this kind of work. So Proto, this is what Proto is. Proto is a user-generated, incentivized map of the world. We have 2 basic tools that allow people to build maps, and we incentivize people using a method that I will talk about in a second. So there are 2 different tools. There's the app. The app is for my mom. It's as simple as that, so that my mother can contribute data about points of interest, about places around her, all the information. And then there is the web editor. The web editor is for people who know how to use this data and do stuff with it. Like Felt was, right? Felt will give you data, and you can use that and you can make stuff. So stuff like that. So the web editor is right now under development. It will release towards the end of next month. We are testing it internally. The app has been out for about 40 days now. We're at 815 users, 63,000 data points contributed so far. And the people who are using it are enjoying it so far at least. So we're happy about that. That's what it looks like. You guys can download it if you want. I'll give a link to the app and everything. I'll leave them around so you can also ask me. So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah. So I want to take you back to the drawing board for a bit, and I want to talk about how this works. And this is where Web3 comes in. I think Web3 is misunderstood heavily, and it's people within Web3 who are at fault for that, because we talk about some coin pumping to some random value more than we talk about the technology behind it that is much more valuable. So we'll say, I don't know, which was that? Tell me something that we say, random stuff that Web3 people say that doesn't make any sense. To the moon. to the moon and all that kind of
Meme
crap.
coins.
Yeah, meme coins and all that kind of shit. But behind all of that, there's like really valuable technology that is being used. Immutability is valuable, peer-to-peer verification is valuable, and most importantly, I think on the network that we are built on, there is a particular primitive called a compressed NFT, which is very valuable. Don't think about an NFT as that JPEG that you think about in general. Think about a compressed NFT as a think about a compressed NFT as a small part, a small leaf on a maple tree. How many of you know what a maple tree is? Okay, very few. Sorry, bad example. Think of it as a leaf on a tree, for lack of a better example. What compressed NFTs allow us to do is they allow us to create a permanent record of a user's contribution on chain that no one can tamper with and no one owns apart from the person who created it. And because these things are built like a tree, I apologize if I'm getting technical, just stop me and ask, I'll stop and I'll explain. But because these things are built like a tree, you can treat them like a Git repository, which means that you can fork off of a place and do stuff with it, which means that you can clone stuff and build stuff on top of it. You can do all the things that you do with a traditional sort of data contribution system, but now with provenance and permanent tracking of who used what, how many times, and how it was used and for what purposes. What that lets us do is this very bad drawing that I made by hand is there is a user, let us we call them mappers, so let's say there's a mapper and they contribute something. They're able to divorce the user data because we convert that into a unique ID and the user cannot be identified by us. We take the map data and we push it into a centralized database, right? Not the chain. The centralized database still needs to remain, but what we do is that the hash of that data is indexed on chain as the CNFT. So each time someone uses data from that centralized repo, we are able to go back to the NFT that was minted for that particular use case and say that this was used by this person at this time for this purpose. And each and every time that happens, we are updating that tree. And as that tree updates, we are able to keep track of whose data was used, how much was it used, what it was used for, every single thing. And that allows us to build smart contracts that directly transfer sort of the value of that usage to the user without us being an intermediary. So there is an API user pays us, but the smart contract already knows how much they paid for what, and they're able to split that payment between the person who actually contributed that data and us. And this model is valuable because now you don't need to think about the fact that what if Esri were to change their code base tomorrow? Because the code is deployed on chain, it's open source. Anyone can look up stuff on the chain. And because each piece of data is on chain, that data is also open source. The only difference is that once it's on chain, once it's used, there is tracking available, there is verification available. And people can prove the fact that, okay, I contributed this on this particular day, and this is why this data is important, or this is what this matters. So, we try to build we're not at this stage yet, right? Because we're at 800 users. It's still early days, and the API is still not publicly available. It's still in private beta. So, what we do right now is that we built a secondary compensation model for people who are using the app, which is to say that based on the usage of their data in the private beta, the demand for their data based on where they're mapping, the quality of the data that they're contributing as verified not by us but by the peers, so other people on the app, and the quantity of the data that they're contributing and the density of it, we come up with a compound number that allows them to sort of get rewards right now temporarily. As soon as the smart contract kicks in, the public beta, the API is publicly available, we transition into a model where people are paid based on how the data that they contribute is used. So as an example, assume that you have ordered, this person who lives in this house has ordered from Swiggy, and Swiggy decides to figure out like who lives here or the address of this place and the address of the restaurant. So whoever contributed data for that particular point is sort of compensated based on however much Swiggy pays for that small little microtransaction that they did. This is how the process is. You join, you map, that's really great. Once you're at a certain level, once we have your we trust, basically there's a score assigned to a person based on the quality of their contributions. Once we trust sort of the level of contributions that you're making and your integrity as an actor in the system, we give you access to the web UI, which is just in testing right now. It's privately tested. And yeah, there is KYC and stuff which everyone knows what it is about and why it is doing that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming and how you can get involved if you're interested. We launched the app a little later than we expected, but we did like a private testing of the app for 3 months. But Q1 24 is when we launched it publicly. Like I said, Jan 20th was when we launched it. We've been doing mapathons back to back every weekend for the past, 12 weeks I think. We've done them in Bangalore mostly, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Jammu, Nairobi, a bunch of places. It's really easy, you just need to ask us if you want to conduct a marathon and we have like this playbook that we've developed. We give it to you, you can go ahead and conduct a marathon in your own city, in your college. Raj has done one in his college, anywhere you want basically. It's really decentralized. The web UI, again we were late with that. We are basically 2 months behind schedule. Let's just assume that everything is running 2 months behind schedule because we're a small team and we're really crunched for time right now. So the web UI comes out hopefully by the end of next month. But we launch with sort of the ability to sort of use the web UI with QGIS natively, so that you don't need to sort of change your context. If you're familiar with QGIS, you just use the plugin and you're able to access the web UI directly. You don't need to change sort of your tool set. Map to Earn is live now. People are earning already. We have a mapper in Indonesia who takes weekends off. He goes around on a scooter and just maps a bunch. At the end of the day, he brags about how much he mapped on the group, and then he takes that money, and that's become his the money that he earns from the app is the money that he uses monthly for fuel, for petrol and all the expenses that he has. Which is, I think it's fantastic because it's a small amount. It's not like a change with making people millionaires yet, but it really makes an impact in his life, saves him a little bit of money, and he enjoys doing it. So it's like a win-win for all of us. A lot of stuff that you see here is actually like going to come out. It's not yet out. Apart from the app, actually nothing else. The API is being tested. Shreyash is the one who's developing the API end to end. Is being tested right now. On the app at least, we use our own APIs now. The web UI, again, like I said, end of next month. And I think that's really about it. April 1, 24, we're releasing V2 of the app with a lot of changes because a lot of feedback came in. People told us what they liked, what they didn't like, changed a lot of stuff. Made it very easy. I wouldn't say that. Made it easier for regular people to get the hang of it at first and then become pros over time. Because that was a complaint that we heard. Because we all have like a mapping background on the team and we assume that people just know what they need to add. But most people don't. You need to tell them and you need to help them out in that process. If you want to get involved, you can become ambassadors, which is what Raj is, basically an intern. He helps us grow community here in Bangalore. If you're friends in another city who want to help us grow community there, we're happy to support them. Mapathons, they happen everywhere. You can organize one, you can participate in one. All you need to do is like just keep track of us on Twitter or Instagram. We're doing this thing called a Mapper Spotlight. We're looking for people who are interesting, who've done work in the mapping space and trying to put together sort of profiles for them to share what they do. Just give them a little bit more visibility in terms of their work and things like that. So if you are one of those people, feel free to reach out and we'll help you out in whatever way. It's really it. It's a link to the everything that you need from us. If you need to reach us, those are the numbers. But if you want to reach me specifically, I am Akshay93 Aditya on Telegram, AKSHAY93 Aditya, ADITYA. I am it's my username on Twitter. And not on Instagram, I'm Akshay on LinkedIn. And everywhere on the internet, the company's handle is Alright. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to take this off in case like you guys want it, you can just ask me about it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
First of all, congratulations to you guys and your team, for working on this. I can definitely understand the pressure that gets built to launch it, especially on April 1st, bro. Yeah. So that is the because we are also trying to do things around the same date. You can understand. Secondly, what I love especially is the idea that as creators we've been thinking, like the YouTube example that you showed, right? Like the whole creator economy that goes and where blockchain, plays a very certain role. Currently, it's all just being shitted about because of the crypto thing and all going on. But there's more to the underlying technology, like you said, blockchain, and having that decentralized social network in a way where we can leverage this creator economy. We can give back to creators and can have a community. I guess the decentralized part also works in where the trust is going to get built eventually. And there might be, trust issues because in the end we are all humans. So I guess that's the thing. But with that in place and plan, my questions were around, the adoption of this. How will the economy? Because the Indian mindset is kitna milega, kitna dega. What's the business? What am I going to get out of it? Kitna mil raha hai? Be it money or be it economics, unit economics. These days is thrown around a lot. So A, the adoption of it, B, the economics that plays the role on it, and what's the way forward, we are looking into it. Because being stand-up comedians or content creators on our end also, I personally have not posted any reel, any video, any content of mine, which is very close, to my heart, that I have spent hours and hours of performing and written, because we want it to be a live art form. We want people to, have an audience like these, have come to our open mics, enjoy our shows, in comparison to seeing it on YouTube and just enjoying it. That's not what we want. We don't want high paying clients, ticket sales, corporates, etc. So we also are looking to have decentralized platforms for ourselves. Currently what you see a lot of content creators and comedians are doing is they tie up with Paytm or such platforms, Book My Show, and wherein people pay, let's say, for 800 or 1000 rupees for their 1 hour special. That's available, let's say, for 24 hours, and after the 24 hours the content is destroyed, it's deleted. So but in that sense also anyone can record it, and post it online. Piracy works, especially in India, and that's where the P2P networks and everything came into place. From BitTorrents, if you see piracy, a lot of these underlying principles and technologies came into place. So when we say about having decentralized networks, and we have a good intent of helping the creator economy, but we know the jackasses out there, who are out there to create chaos. They will either pirate data or make some hell amount of conflicts and chaos out there. How are we dealing with that? Because as content creators, we are also worried when our jokes or when our content is plagiarized, or when our specials are just out there for free on the torrent site. So yeah, so how are you thinking about it? How can we deal about it? Because for Proto,
guessing your question basically is that how do you deal with malicious actors?
Exactly.
So I think there are two ways, right? Well, you're saying there are three kinds of malicious actions that you do.
Yes.
A, you're basically taking copyrighted work and doing something with it without giving proper
Exactly.
access. The second one is that you're trying to do something which is inaccurate. You're sort of providing misinformation about a particular thing and trying to do that. Or the third is sort of you're just trying to bother people in general, create proper problems. So I think usually the way communities work is that there is a zero start problem, which is when you're starting, people need to latch on, and you're building, people need to get interested, etc. But once you reach a certain point where there is equal stake for people who are involved in producing the content as people who are building the product, everyone who is part of it, the value of having skin in the game is that people care about what the people who are doing things.
Exactly.
So if I don't know, if I'm not building this and I'm just a participant in the network and I'm contributing data or I'm building maps and doing all of those things, it matters to me that everyone else do that well as well. It's important to me. So it's basically like almost community governed in a way. But that being said, right now the way we do it is that it's just we have a team that is looking at it because it's just 800 people.
Yeah, so someone from the team has to play the multiple head role of a moderator as well.
There needs to be a moderator. So, okay, so this might sound wrong, but I'll explain in a better sense. There was a person who was adding information on the platform 4 weeks ago from Ukraine, and I'm sure everyone knows what's going on in Ukraine. And a lot of it was about the war and imagery related to the war, etc.
Controversial plus graphical issues,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to comment on whether controversial or graphical or whatever. I just want to say that we discussed it internally. What should we do? Should we moderate? Should we not? And we didn't have an answer because there was a position that some of us had, which was that why should we? And the other was that we need to because this is malicious information, whatever. So we just asked the community, and the community said that they want to take it down, so they took it down. And they communicated with the person who put it up, and he was okay with it. So I feel like it's okay to leave a lot of things to be decided by the larger group of people. We just need to give things time.
Understood. And if you can, talk a few things about user adoption for this unit economics. And lastly, what are some critical burning challenges or questions that you face where you want help? It might give you sleepless nights as well.
So to invest?
Yeah, for sure. Why not?
Okay. What challenges do we face? I think right now we're very focused on what we're building, and I think the small team size is definitely a challenge. We're strapped for none of us have time. Shreyash was working before he came here, then we'll go back and continue working. I will go back and work, so it's just not happening right now. But apart from that, we're okay, I think, for the foreseeable future. What was the other question?
User adoption and unit economics for the creator economics.
I don't understand what you mean by unit economics.
So basically the Indian mindset of if we get onto this platform, first of all why and what will we get, how to build trust, let's say if I want to become an ambassador and the people are interested in reaching out, but they ask the same question, okay, why should we use Proto? Because that can be
ultimately that depends on ultimately it depends on the person who is recommending. It's not people don't come to places based on trust on an institution. Unless, let's say, when we're talking about major institutions, that's a different thing. But a newer thing, people don't come to it based on trust in the institution. They come to it based on trust in the person who's recommending it. So I won't use, Jupiter, the banking app, because I don't know what they are or who they are. But a friend recommended it and he said it was fine, and I trust the person, so I go with it. So ultimately, it comes down to the people who are talking to those people. If you're asking me about how does this grow and how adoption works, I think for us right now the focus is just keep conducting more hackathons, keep getting more people involved, grow them in these particular cities that we're focused on right now, and just come to a point where the community can take over as much of this as possible. Thinking of it almost like
how Reddit works, basically.
How ONDC works, which is you build the protocol and you deploy it. And after a point, it's the community that is building on top of it and doing things, and they're sort of taking things forward. And you don't need to be as involved.
Makes sense. That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Can you pass, please? Asha, Amrut also has. He can go after.
Yeah, sure. No, so I'm just I downloaded it before I came in here.
Yeah, thanks.
So is it I coming from a mapper perspective? How is this different from Google Maps from a mapper perspective? I see.
It's not. From a mapper's perspective, it's not.
Yeah.
For the app, but the moment you come to once you go past that level and you come to using the web UI is when it becomes different in Google Maps, right? Because this is for the person who wants to get in and get started and build and sort of get to a point where they can use GIS and they can sort of work.
Okay.
For people like you, because you said you've used GIS before, this won't be the core thing that you're interested in. You can still use it to sort of build your data stream and sort of capture data around, but the core thing that will be of value to you is the web UI, where you can sort of just post a bunch of data, contribute and sort of keep continue doing stuff. Yeah.
Just so people, right now it feels very close to an OSM or Google Maps. But
yeah,
I know it's like the creator economy and everything. It makes sense. I want to be a mapper. How is it different? Like that's fine.
So I don't think there is anything different apart from the fact that we are very particular about the way this works at a protocol level, not at a. So OSM is not a protocol. OSM is just a database, right? That you are contributing to. There is no systems around how it works. How do these APIs get built? How do these AI models get built? Anything that you do on OSM is just like you're just dumping data on it consistently. The thing that's happening on the back end with the chain and with the NFTs and with all of the stuff that we're building around it is that it operates as a protocol, which means that at any point you can fork it and you can build something else on top of it, and you can just do whatever you want with that. So whatever you do on top of that, whatever you do on top of that fork model, still needs to fundamentally reflect the same ethos, which is the money needs to go back to the person who contributed originally.
Okay. How flexible is it? Let's say if I want to do a citizen monitoring thing on it, like for water, did your place get flooded? What is your water body's extent right now? How do I do that?
You can propose a new schema, which is basically what we're doing right now. Which is like you can. So someone asked long ago, 1 month ago, someone asked they wanted to report infrastructure issues. We spoke with them. We worked out a schema for how that data will be reported, standardized, discussed, and we put it up.
Okay.
Sort of pushed it to the protocol, and it works now. Same way, if you have an idea of how you want to do this, you can work with us. Tell us what the schema of this data might be like, and what needs to be included, what doesn't. Show it to the community. Let the community also give their comments, and then you can sort of.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. That was excellent. I think clarified a lot of my doubts that I had some time back. But a very simple question, nothing very technical. What's the meaning of your company's name? Like, how did that come to this? I was really curious.
A long time ago, before we started naming the company, we were called DPlan, which is for decentralized planning, and we registered, we were incorporated under that name, but there was no trademark available, so we had to change the name. Me and Shreyash and Vijay, who worked together, we had this idea that this is a really stupid idea that should have been built long ago and no one built. It's very elementary. So we looked for synonyms of the word elementary and we picked Proto because it sounded fun. And this five letters, small enough that you can type out and you can do stuff. Yeah, there is no big story, nothing. It's just.
I wasn't expecting a big, emotional story of it.
There's no emotional. It's just random.
I think it was excellently done. Yeah, thank you so much.
If anyone else has anything, I'm happy to talk about.
Yeah. Unless there are a few more questions. Last one.
Because I'm not sure if this is related to the work that we do for maps, but we have very interesting people in here, so I want to throw around this question, which I guess everyone in here might have experienced this firsthand. So while using apps like Rapido and Namma-Yatri, and I'll showcase with device like this, which is a 2016 year MIA1, and with network issues, let's say you are traveling from Koramangala to Whitefield. So the map that showcases it might have issues, and even in offline at times it's not showing the right directions and the right way, navigation, etc. So are anyone from here trying to solve this problem, work on this problem? I would love to connect.
I think it's you need to talk to Google. The Android core team, it's a hardware issue and an Android issue. No one can solve it really.
There are multiple angles to that. First, of course, you have device degradation over 15 years or whatever that will happen. But for a very specific use case of yours, what you would need to sort of concentrate is on something called offline maps. Like Avan was talking about, he hosted his own maps on his own server, which basically entails that there is 100% connectivity, no downtime and all of that. So a lot of offline data collection activities for surveys on the field rely on PM types or PDF files that basically store map information as single files. You can have like a 10 MB file of Bangalore on your phone that will give you directions, because those data products or those data points are used by Google or OSM for directions themselves. So that's what we use at IHS. We use PM tiles on offline phones that don't have internet connectivity for folks on the field for collecting data, because that's more reliable. So that works out really well, but again, that use case won't apply for, let's say, if you're traveling really far or you need updated information, that won't work. But this is one alternative option that you could probably do. Yeah, I think we'll close. But yeah.
Food is on the way, so you guys want to hang out?
Yeah. So
delayed by a little bit because of traffic. Sorry.
So yeah, so there's washrooms here. You're free to network as well. But just before we close, I just wanted to also say that we will, of course, reach out to you if you're interested to speak on any upcoming events, depending on your backgrounds. If you'd like to propose something that you'd like to talk about at one of our events, you're more than free to just reach out to any of us from the Let's Talk Spatial team. We have multiple speakers here who have come over to multiple locations of ours. We've done a lot of workshops. Vivek was there with us last time, a lot of OSM workshop. We keep doing that as often as possible. So do keep coming to our meetups, meet more people, see what's happening, learn a little bit more about spatial stuff. Yeah, so I think also towards the end of it, if you're also interested in the overall Earth observation, let's say, department or the domain, do consider looking at IEEE GRSS. Me and Aman, we are part of the IEEE GRSS Bangalore state. IEEE is world's largest technology, let's say, organization supported by volunteers and funders. And GRSS is geoscience and remote sensing. So that's a very specific domain that's out there, and Bangalore has its own chapter. So we do have monthly meetups and all that. So do check it out. IEEE GRSS is an excellent opportunity to network with exactly satellite and remote sensing folks, Earth observation folks. You can become a member. You get access to a lot of research articles and journals, otherwise which would be paid. You can get that as well. But it's an excellent opportunity to look into core remote sensing and satellite observation stuff. The website's out there, or you can just reach out to us if you're interested in becoming a member as well. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for coming to our. Oh yeah, this event is in support with IEEE GRSS Bangalore section, so huge shout out to them as well. It wouldn't be possible without their support as well. Huge thanks to Akshay and the Proto team for having us. Hopefully, few more collaborations will happen over time. Let's see how we can take up mapping as a daily activity other than just looking out for traffic every day. But thanks everyone for coming. Please network around. Have fun. Thanks.
I forgot to say this. We as a team will be mapping around with the app right now after next snacks or whatever. If you guys want to stick around, join us or whatever. Thanks.
Just take how much time to do? I think it will take. You can give an idea how much.
One hour. Cancel.
What? How much time the activity is?
Whatever time you want. We are chilling for like 1 hour, 2 hours, we'll do it. You guys want to stick around, talk with us, we'll do it together. And if you want to leave at any point, it's up to you. And where is the next hackathon at? What's the like location? 23rd March? No, sorry, 30th March. Okay. We're doing a marathon with Mayur, who is he's a history expert. He's going to be doing a marathon along with a heritage walk in Madheshwaram. Okay. And the same thing the week after that in Mumbai in Colaba. So both of those places he'll be doing like history and mapping sort of combined together. There is another one that is coming up next month, which is in Indiranagar. The dates have been finalized yet, but there is you go to luma.ma/proto